Aisha, assalamu alaikum. Aisha, you need to turn your phone upside down. This is better, yeah. Alvera, if you can get me become a co-host, I would appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum. I just did it, brother.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much, my dear.
And I shared the link. I don't know if you saw it. I shared the link.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah. Aisha, you're mute. Jawad, if you can get me a co-host.
Now I'm not.
I'm not a co-host.
So I was trying to set the camera up in the right way. Is that okay?
No problem, yeah.
It's all right?
Yeah, it looks better. Yeah, it looks very good.
Should I turn the light on?
No, this is good. You look good.
Okay.
Can you turn the lights on? Maybe you will see the difference.
Yeah.
Jackie, I want to thank everybody at the end. Just I have slides that Sahar sent me.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Anila.
Walaikum assalam. And so good to see you again, dear Sister Asha.
Good to see you
It's
too.
been so long. Yes.
See everybody.
This is going to be a weekly thing, or maybe a bi-weekly thing now, Sister Anila. We've been on so many Zoom calls now together. It's
That is true. That is true. For better or worse, there's definitely
for the better.
Well, yeah. Alhamdulillah. Happy about that. Yeah. Are we starting at 6 p.m.? Is that the start of this? Okay, just wanted to confirm. All right, thank you.
Sister Mali, how are you doing?
Me?
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm in Ashland at my house. I live here with many children, and it's an active household. So yeah. Yeah, how's everybody up there? You got good rain? We've had smoke, so we're a little bit fed up with the smoke.
There was a smidgen of rain the other day, but I think we're still waiting for the rain to finally come down and make everything green again, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Sister Mali. How are you?
Okay, back.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Okay. We've been having computer problems, so I hope it works.
I think when you were speaking at first, I couldn't hear you, but only when you came right up to the computer, I think I could hear you, and that was it. So maybe you might have to do that. Reverend Lopez, good to see you. Good to hear from you again. We just spoke 20 minutes ago, I think it was, but always good to see you.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That is my goddaughter's design.
Very nice.
That'll liven things up a bit.
She said I was too dull, so I needed something to help me out.
That's good.
Hello, Senor Khan.
Don Hector, Reverend Lopez, always good to see you.
Been a while, has it?
It has been a while. Hello, Rabbi Kosak.
Before we go on the live, can I ask a question? I live in Ashland, and this is a community that believes in natural healing community. So this new mandate of vaccination has been very difficult for our community. And I'm just wondering, there in Portland, is there controversy going on with this? No one wants to answer. It's a bad subject.
Asha, you were breaking up a little bit there at the end. I couldn't fully hear what you said.
That's not good.
There you go. That's clear.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I should. I have a problem that I don't have a computer. I'm on my cell phone. And if I turn my camera like that, does that work okay for you guys?
Yes.
Okay, good. That works better for me. Good. So, yeah, I was just curious how the vaccine mandate is going to be affecting everybody in Portland.
Miss Deliverance, are you in Ashland?
I'm in Ashland, yeah.
One of my favorite cities.
We do like it. Yeah, I have a business with 30 employees here. And I raised 10 children here.
Of course.
So,
Miss
yeah.
Marley, I haven't seen you in about 17 years. You haven't aged one day.
Are you talking to me?
You must have a portrait up in your attic.
Good evening, everyone.
What, Rabbi?
How's it going?
Well, yes, good to see you, Rabbi Kosak.
Good to see you, Jawad. Yeah,
And thank you for being here with us tonight.
you're very welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. So,
Wa alaikum salam. I'm in the airport and I'm supposed to have my flight moved from 4 to 7. So I have about 25 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My beloved brother Hector Lopez, long time no
Salam.
see.
Hello. Hello. Good to see you.
You look like under the sea with that picture behind you.
Well, I was just saying that I am have a flight at 6:25. I was supposed to be at an earlier flight, and I'm in the airport still. So I have about 20 minutes until I run to the gate to load up.
No problem, inshallah.
You want me to call your airline and cancel your flight?
Oh, if you have that power, then. But being it's 9/11 and calling the airline would not be a good idea.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hatim. Just wanted to say that I think we know who's going first then in terms of speaking.
Inshallah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, Rabbi and Anila and Aisha, Pastor Hennessy.
Good evening.
Pastor, how are you?
Great.
My beloved sister Molly.
Wonderful to see you.
Beautiful to see you.
Amen.
Jawad, we should start. I think, Polo and you ready?
We are still trying to get Polo in. I'm not sure. I'm talking with them right now. Let me see if we can get him in.
Well, Mr. Kung, when I monitor these things, if they're 2 minutes late, they're out of it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the airplanes just don't quite allow enough bandwidth for Zoom, or you could you could do it from the airwaves, and everyone on the plane could participate. It's got to be better than the shows they offer.
How's our rabbi tonight?
I am doing well. Tired because it's a very busy season right now for me, but in good spirits. And thanks for asking. How about you?
Good, thank you. Yeah, Happy New Year, and I take it the Yom Kippur services went well also.
Oh, that's coming up. Rosh Hashanah, yeah, Rosh Hashanah went well, and Yom Kippur begins Wednesday night to Thursday, and there's still more to get done before then than I wish there were. But someone had asked about just changes, mandates, vaccine and stuff, but we we continue to make adjustments. Our only services that we're doing right now are outside, so trying to move from an indoor setting at the last moment to outdoor and all of that. So it's never a dull moment.
Understood.
But so far the weather looks like it's agreeable to make that happen, so I'm grateful for that. Otherwise we'll be here just like we all are today.
Yeah. Well, it worked.
All right. I'm not sure if we're going to get Brother Polo in. So I guess we'll just have to start them. We can get him in here later.
Is this seminar, or will we be able to see people? What's the form of this?
Every webinar. We can promote this if they want to speak to Rabbi Kosak or to the pastor Hennessy face to face. But webinar format for now. Oh, Mr. Polo says he is waiting, but he can't get in.
I'm very comfortable because I've never been to an MET event that started on time.
we learn from the best, man.
Hector, I like to say that my long years in interfaith work has taught me that whatever Jews like to say about themselves are universal. Like Jewish Standard Time is Baptist Standard Time, is Muslim Standard Time, is Baha'i Standard Time.
Look, we're all cousins in that regard.
Oh my! I don't even know why I wear a watch.
My Latino brother, my Chicano brother teaches us the best, practices.
Amen to that.
Well, you need to watch in order to make sure that how long you're late.
Yeah. Jawad, let's go ahead and start,
Okay. We'll have Sister Vera and there we go. Okay. We can give 1 second for the attendees to come in. Oh, there's Mr. Apollo.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
I'll change your name.
Hi.
I always feel better when you all are around.
You must have been feeling not so well for a year and a half.
Not true. You look healthy and happy. Don't have to like this. Good to see you, Angela. Rabbi David, good to see you. Pastor Hennessy, always good to see you.
Friend, great to see you, Paul.
Professor Bastian.
Always good to see you.
And the greatest affection and respect from our family, Asha. I'm so happy seeing you. Is it still daylight in Ashland, Oregon?
Great.
Okay.
I think so because we're further south, maybe? I don't know.
It's
I
good
thought
to
you
see
would have a
you.
good day.
Right. Up in the North Country, it'd stay longer in the summer and darker earlier. Right. I think that's how that works.
That's it. I'm in New York, so it's been dark here for a while.
Oh, I see.
Paulo, I think we're ready to start. If you will begin for us.
Yes, thank you. Let me find my stuff here. I know can't be far. We had a bit of a tense moment or two getting in. Okay, let me see here. Oh dear. Sorry, folks. Let me figure out what happened to my Word doc. Okay, yeah. Brother Jawad, are we online? Are we broadcasting? Oh dear.
Hello, brother Hatem is leaving in 20 minutes in the plane.
All right.
So we can start with this. We can start with this reflection. Go ahead and start. Bismillah.
Okay, my audio is on then. Okay, so sorry everyone. I'm now focused and online. So assalamu alaikum, dear community elders, dear parents, dear brave sisters, and our bright brothers too. Dear children and grandchildren, tentu kasihan ilah. Clearly God loves you, because this blessed northwest corner of our grand American continent is nourishing you. Now, surely we've all read about how 2 centuries ago, U.S. Army Corps of Discovery Captains Lewis and Clark paddled up River Columbia and claimed this place. But everyone else standing around back then and everyone standing by now, know for sure that this place, our place's wealth and our health, was carefully stewarded for you, our children, by 110 centuries of indigenous families living and loving here. Alhamdulillah. For their kindness and their creativity, we have great love and respect for our Chinook, Clackamas, and Kalapuya, Kalamat, Multnomah, and Tualatin peoples, and for our confederated tribes of Grand Ronde. In front of us, we have today an amazing array of generations and genders, ethnicities, and faith traditions. I've taken way too long, and so let me move this back to teacher Jawad of Oregon Islamic Academy and Islamic School at MAT. Jawad.
Thank you so much, Dr. And we were going to have our beloved, respected brothers and co-founders of this beloved community coalition, Reverend Hector Lopez and Brother Wesley Said, give a little history about the beloved community coalition and how it began. Before we do that, we have one of our guests, Dr. Hatem Bezian, who is at the airport and about ready to take flight. So we wanted to give him his chance to give a reflection on what it means to have the beloved community in light of the 20 years anniversary that we have now since the tragic attacks on 9/11. So we'll start with Brother Hatem and his reflections, and then we'll go to Brother Wajdi and Reverend Lopez about the history of the beloved community, and then to the rest of the panel. So Dr. Hatem, it's yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm here at the LAX airport and coming to you. I would have preferred to be rested at home, but we take whatever comes to us at this point. And hopefully we will take the opportunity in the near future to come and visit back in Portland. It's a beloved community, MET, Muslim Educational Trust, Brother Wajdi, and the community that he built with all the interfaith, really interfaith work for justice. That's what I see the Portland example, that often our interfaith work is actually done with our feet, walking and being in the protest in the front line, in the best tradition of MLK and the civil rights movement. This is the 20th anniversary, and I think it's very important that this is taking place as we witness the United States withdrawing from Afghanistan. Many of us said it was wrong on day one, and it took 20 years for others to really come into the conclusion of really a delayed understanding of what would have been if the United States and NATO and other countries did not go through the path of revenge and the path of really authorizing regime change that visited and changed and rewired the world. But this is the world that we have been given. It's a world that MLK's Three Evils of Society's speech of the 1967, it still resonates today, that we still have to confront materialism, militarism, and racism. And the work of trying to build these alliances of communities of faith, of people that want to birth a different new horizon, a different world. This is the difficult task that is in front of us. It is very easy to go down the path of demonization, of hate, of bigotry, of Islamophobia, of anti-Semitism, of anti-Black racism, anti-immigrant, and so on. It's a very easy package. And that's why you find many who are in the political arena immediately go into the slippery slope of fear and demonization. It's an easy package. But the task of inspiring people, of building hope, of actually attending to one's neighbor, to attending to those who are on the margins of society is the difficult task. And I think if you look at all of our tradition, it all emphasizes for us to welcome the stranger, to welcome those that are at the margins of the society. The Prophet actually said many times that those first to enter paradise are those that are oppressed. And also welcomed always that the stranger who knocks on your door comes in to partake in really helping the cleansing of your home, but also taking you into the perspective of challenging the ideas that you might have wrongly about other people. So this is the task for us as we commemorate. I'm trying to get away from the sun so you don't have this. So as we are commemorating the 20th anniversary, I think it calls upon us to dedicate ourselves to changing the society that we have. And it builds and it begins in our own home and our own neighborhood. And we could think transnationally, but we have to act locally. We have to act locally in every neighborhood. We have to bring people together. I know that in Portland, just like in Berkeley, San Francisco, and LA, we have so many that are homeless and dispossessed. And it is $2 trillion that we have spent on Afghanistan and close to $5 trillion that we have spent in Iraq and few other regime change and drone attacks. And as MLK said, that the bombs that were thrown on Vietnam blow up in our inner cities. So you cannot actually make a separation between the disparities, the homelessness, the lives that are locked up, whether it's locked up in the streets of our cities or locked up in the prisons of brown and black communities that are locked up. The resources, in essence, are being funneled away from the fundamental human needs. And I think as we dedicate ourselves to this agenda of change, that's what I would think of it, that this is the task that is ahead of us, to rebuild our community, to rebuild our society locally, And if we are able to do it successfully at the local level, then I would definitely will be sure that it will be reflected transnationally, because we are living in a global village. And I will make just a final maybe conclusion that as our maybe forests and lands are being burned, there is an epistemological relationship, as if the earth the world is telling us to make a correction has to be part and parcel of what we reflect upon the past 20 years and what will be the next 20 years that we would be working to bring about transformation. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you. And I'm really sorry that I have to catch the plane, but I promise that I will definitely look forward to visiting Portland, one of my really beloved cities, and beautiful people and beautiful community in there. So I would for sure look forward to Wajdi's invitation in the near future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bazian, for your wonderful introduction. You have been always a great healer and unifier in our beautiful American Muslim community in our public square. Dr. Bazian is a professor of Asian Studies at University of Berkeley in California.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hatem. And
You're welcome.
Going off of some of the comments that Dr. Bazian made, we're going to play a short video that encapsulates some of the ideas, some of the things that have been in the national dialogue and broadcast over the past week to commemorate the anniversary of the events of 9/11. So could we get the video loaded? There we go.
So what, the sound is not clear? Jawad, the sound.
Yes, I don't think the audio was coming in. Teacher Vera, could we restart the video?
The U.S. and the world. 3 days after the attacks, President George Bush stood atop the rubble of Lower Manhattan and promised retribution.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people.
U.S. President Joe Biden has urged the country to show unity while honoring the victims of the 9/11 attacks. It's been 20 years since hijacked passenger planes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C. 3,000 people were killed. Rob Reynolds looks back at the aftermath of those events.
On page 150.
A whisper in the president's ear set in motion actions that changed the U.S. and the world. 3 days after the attacks, President George Bush stood atop the rubble of Lower Manhattan and promised retribution.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Blame immediately fell on Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda organization based in Afghanistan, which had already carried out several deadly attacks on U.S. targets abroad. Less than a month after the attacks, the U.S. began military action in Afghanistan. Bin Laden escaped, but was tracked down in Pakistan nearly a decade later.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden the leader of Al-Qaeda.
But even with bin Laden dead, the war in Afghanistan dragged on for another 10 years, ending in a Taliban victory. The September 11th attacks were a profound shock, with images playing out on TV. In the aftermath, lawmakers rushed to overhaul national security laws with little or no debate.
The events of 9/11 really frightened people enough that I don't think many people ever read the Patriot Act and realized really how profoundly it changed what government is able to do in terms of tracking and conducting surveillance on American citizens.
For many Americans, the closest contact with the new enhanced security state came at the airport.
The magnetometer, the metal detector, the x-ray machines. You had to start having your ID scrutinized, and then taking off your shoes, the limitations on liquids, and then finally in 2010, the full body scanner.
Things that few Americans would have contemplated before now were widely accepted.
The government initially was intercepting virtually all of the metadata on all of our emails and telephone conversations without any warrants. This was just dragnet surveillance.
The invasion of Iraq in 2003 overthrew Saddam Hussein, who was later captured and executed. But it produced no weapons of mass destruction. 200,000 Iraqis and more than 4,000 U.S. troops were killed. The naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, became a prison where so-called enemy combatants were held indefinitely. Some remain there to this day. A color-coded system of threats was introduced, keeping citizens on edge.
That was the goal. Frighten the American people, inflate the risk factor a millionfold, and then people say, oh, well, we have to accept this, because otherwise there'll be bodies on the sidewalks and on the streets and everywhere else.
The abuse of detainees by U.S. soldiers at Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq appalled many in the U.S. and around the globe. But at the same time, in the U.S., veneration of the military grew.
We have sort of fetishized the military over the last 20 years. We have no idea of the long-term impact of having people who've grown up entirely during a war period, or people whose entire adult life has been serving in a war zone.
4 presidents and 2 wars later, the U.S. is a far different country from the one that existed 20 years ago. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera.
Memorial services will be held across the U.S. to mark the 9/11 attacks. Emily Angwin looks back at how that day unfolded 20 years ago.
It began as a clear, sunny Tuesday morning along America's East Coast. Just before 8 o'clock on September 11, 2001, American Airlines Flight 11 takes off from Boston, followed by United Airlines Flight 175. A short while later, American Airlines Flight 77 departs from Washington's Dulles Airport, and United Airlines Flight 93 from Newark, New Jersey. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York. People assume it's a terrible accident. More than 1,000 first responders head to the scene. 17 minutes later, Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower. President Bush is informed that America is under attack. American Airlines Flight 77 then crashes into the Pentagon. Authorities ground all flights across the United States, but one more plane was still in the air. United 93 was headed for Washington, D.C., possibly the White House, Capitol building, or other targets. After burning for 56 minutes, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. Morning networks are showing these pictures live to millions of Americans. The passengers and crew on United 93 overpower the hijackers, and the plane crashes into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center also collapses. Nearly 3,000 people were killed, including citizens from more than 90 countries.
The video that we just saw captures a little bit, tiny bit of the emotions and thoughts and the complexities of that day and what's come forward. Samuel Cohen in the Los Angeles Times this morning, in a tremendous reflection, he says, days of commemoration, while seeming to be all about looking backward, also look forward. How we remember our past as a nation helps shape how we think of ourselves today, and so helps determine how we act as a nation tomorrow. The narratives we construct out of the events of the past, of the things we do and the things that happen to us, take shape out of such public observances and help determine our responses to future events. And this is the history of how the Beloved Community Coalition came about. And that day that happened, there had to be an aftermath of it. And there were so many things that did happen after that, as far as policy is concerned, about the outlook of the world and how we would engage with it. And those were multiple ways of viewing the world. Fortunately, out of something terrible, out of something tragic, out of all the lives that were lost on that day, there was an idea that ideologies of hate, ideologies of xenophobia or bigotry or mistrust of each other was not the way forward, but rather an idea about a community where people from all different backgrounds could live the beloved community, as was formulated by the teachings partly of Martin Luther King Jr. And tonight we have the two of the co-founders of the Beloved Community Coalition. We have the Reverend Hector Lopez, and we have Brother Wajdi Saeed, and we will invite both of them to speak briefly about what happened, what was the history, how did it come together, and what was the impetus and ideology of what we wanted to see forward out of such an event. And I will begin with Reverend Hector Lopez. Dr. Lopez, you're on mute.
I'm not quite as techy as you all are. A clarification, do you want me to share some of the history, or do you want me to enter into my statement as a panelist?
You can do both, Dr. Lopez. Either one that you want.
Well, I know Wajdi also wants to do some commentary. Why don't we let him go first, and then I can go in with my statement.
If that's amenable to Brother Wajdi, we can do that. Brother Wajdi? Brother Wajdi is also on mute.
I told you he's my great teacher, you know. In our tradition, Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez, my beloved brother, you know, we always respect the wisdom before the student. You are the wise man that we, in your footsteps, we were able, you know, to engage and to embrace our public square. And if my mother alive, she wouldn't let me speak before you. So I would really appreciate if you can speak, and then I'll complete whatever you left.
9/11 was the impetus for several things that happened, as you were saying, Mr. Khan. First, it was the impetus for the development of the Interfaith Council of Greater Portland. When 9/11 exploded, within 2 days, an interfaith gathering of communities gathered to form that Interfaith Council of Greater Portland, first of all, to stand around the Muslim community, to be a protection, because we didn't know what the response was going to be. But we know that we had to form a community of strength that would protect one another, and particularly our Muslim brothers and sisters. So that was the first impetus. And following that, the anniversary of 9/11 came about, and several people, including Mr. Saeed and Michael Ellick and some other people, we're trying to find a way to really honor the occasion in a way that demonstrated the connectedness of our faith communities throughout Portland. And so it was decided that that first event to memorialize the 9/11 event could be the start of a gathering of different faiths and different community groups to come and declare that they want to be one. So at that very first anniversary, which I believe Pastor Hennessy was there as a speaker, and some others of you were also. And for the very first time, it was declared that the beloved community was going to be what we were going to seek in Portland and Oregon, and maybe for the entire world, as a way of combating the tenacious evil of international racism, of all of these abuses that were happening to Mother Earth. So it was at that moment, at First Congregational United Church of Christ Church, where that commitment was made. And I celebrate that because it was those brothers and sisters who chose to become pasajeros. That means passengers on the journey of becoming the beloved community. It was there where we chose to acknowledge that we truly are brother and sister to every single human being on earth. Familia. Familia. And we were instantly surprised and thankful to our Creator for the rich, loving, and affectionate relationships that have bloomed from that initial coming together. And I must correct myself because it's not becoming, I don't want to use a gerund there. It's not about becoming a beloved community, because we were created from the very first moment to be the beloved community. And somewhere down that journey, humanity lost sight of that incredible gift that was given to us. The beloved community is about a deep, abiding faith in our Creator's love for all of creation. Choosing to be part of this journey, this beloved community, is a journey of discovery, a journey of meeting strangers from strange lands. And friends, let me tell you, the first time I saw the Muslim community in all of its beauty, I was a little taken back. I said, my Lord, have mercy. These are aliens from an alien land. So, aliens and strangers whom we thought we had nothing in common, we have found out that those we thought were anathema to our faith and culture were really brother and sister to us. And being members of the same family, because we have proclaimed to be family, that is our proclamation, we are family. It means that we lovingly acknowledge one another's beauty as well as one another's faults. That's a hard part of being part of the beloved community. The beloved community is not about tribalism. Sometimes we allow the identity of our tribal community to overshadow our brothers and sisters. Sometimes we allow our suffering and oppression of our community to overshadow the suffering and oppression of other brothers and sisters. The beloved community does not have a culture. It is an amalgam of cultures, traditions, practices, and mores. A particular culture can be beautiful and can be and should be shared with one another, but we cannot make it become a barrier to love, fellowship, justice, and peace. I'm going to give you an example of my Mexican culture, okay? My sister who is the sister of my brother and myself, is brilliant. She is smarter both than my brother and I, and we were all very good students, but she could not go to college. Because in our culture, in the Mexican culture, women could not go to college, only men. So there is the most brilliant member of our family unable to pursue academic excellence because of culture. Let me give you another example of Mexican culture. And as I share these, I want you to take a look at your own cultural realities and see if there's not a couple of little bumps within your reality. Another one. I have a member of our Mexican family in Mexico who ended up with two families. My aunt and her children, one family, and this uncle had another family. And it apparently quite okay with everybody because that's what you do when you're a Mexican. Well, you know what? That may be cultural, but it is not within my understanding of the morals and faith of our Creator. So think about that. Respect for all. And because we do respect all, and because we love one another, we can each help each other by pointing out at the beam in our eyes. Now, that's a biblical concept that comes from the Jewish and Christian tradition. But we're so free to look at the beam in our brothers and sisters' eyes and tell them that they're doing something wrong, but we rarely ever look at the beam in our eyes. Okay, that's just a warning and an alert to some of the pitfalls that come before us as we journey into becoming the beloved community. My commitment to the journey, and I really am at the end of my comment, I have learned from people, many people, about the beloved community, from Dr. Howard Thurman, from Dr. Martin Luther King, from Dolores Huerta, from what's the name of the judge and the woman who died, from Judge Ruth Ginsburg, from so many people that I could spend all night telling you about what I have learned from these wonderful people. I have learned from Wajdi Saeed, from Mr. Khan, Miss Molly, Mr. Matt. I have learned from all of you, but most of all, those of you who are sitting around the Zoom audience, I've learned it from you. I've learned what it means to become a beloved member of this community. I have learned how hard it is too, because we're so different, and it's so hard to acknowledge and accept those differences from one another. But it is my commitment to walk that journey, which is very similar to my 12-step journey, to walk that journey and to watch out for the pitfalls that befall us. Beloved is a difficult word to define. I don't know if you've tried to play with that word. The reference books do not help much. It basically means dearly loved. Well, does that help you? Doesn't help me any. It is not a Webster term, nor is it a biblical term, nor a religious term. It is at heart a spiritual word, a spiritual concept that incorporates the depths of and faith in our most fundamental understanding of love, care, affection, responsibility, election, and commitment. In short, we claim each other. We claim each other to be brother and sister to one another. And please note, in the beloved community, there are no fathers or mothers. It is egalitarian. It is about brothers and sisters. We love one another. We are chosen. We are commissioned. We are on a journey. So, beloved community members, shall we continue that wondrous journey of discovery?
Thank you so much, Dr. Reverend Hector Lopez, for those thoughts and how this process has come about, and things for all of us to think about. And usually I would say that following such a statement would be a very, very difficult task that no one would want to follow after that. But I want to introduce Brother Wardsley, also a co-founder of this beloved community coalition that has evolved over these years, for his comments. Brother Wardsley.
Thank you very much, Jawad and Paulo and everyone, and thanks to Dr. Hatem Bizian. And thank you very much, my beloved brother, Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez. You know, what a beautiful journey to know you as a person. What a beautiful journey to know you as a leader of faith and values. What a beautiful journey to know you as a Chicano and a Mexican American. You know, my beloved brother Hector Lopez is a unique man in his approach, you know, into leadership and how he put faith into action. He is a firm believer in his Christian path, but he's also a great human being. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many scholars of Islam, they say that a good human being is a good Christian, a good Jewish, a good Muslim, a good Hindu, a good Buddhist. It's all about the values. Before I go into reflection into the history of the Interfaith Council of Greater Portland and the beloved community movement, I would like to take a moment, to remember all the victims of all the 9/11, what happened in New York, and all the 9/11s that our U.S. foreign policy has created and all over the world. Today, I read, a statement by the great singer, Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam, saying that, the 9/11 attack and the innocent lives it took with it was an image of horror we cannot forget. Similarly, the repercussions and the revenge killing of hundreds of thousands of Muslims must not be forgotten either. When you judge fairly. That is the balance that Allah, that God, the Almighty demands. Every innocent soul is equal in value. The Iraqis, the Syrians, the Afghanis, the Yemenis, the Pakistanis, as well as Americans of European background or African American. The slavery that we forgot, the indigenous people that has faced the early 9/11 in this country. Whoever think otherwise has lost their understanding of humanity. End quote of Cat Stevens. This is an important reflection, that we need to remember, my dear beloved sisters and brothers. Today we have lost many beloved sisters and brothers that have been part of this movement. We remember, the late Reverend Dr. Chuck Cooper. We remember the late Reverend Dr. Phil Harder. We remember the late Rabbi Area Hirschfield, as our students called him, the singing rabbi. And many others. Reverend, beloved Reverend, Pastor Hennessy has been instrumental in this movement. Reverend, beloved sister, Lynn Lopez, may Allah bless her and reward her, the spouse of Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez. She has been part of this movement. We as Muslims, we don't condemn the color of skin. We love each one of us, whether you are white or black or brown, whatever background is. The sisters of the holy names, they were there, they were there. Sister Molly Rivas, Sister Guadalupe, Sister Cecilia Ranges, and many other sisters. The beloved community founding was a challenge. It wasn't an easy challenge. It was a wonderful challenge, and it was really, the politics within Christian family. The Mormons couldn't be part of the beloved community at the early stage. The Scientologists couldn't be part of it. And if it wasn't Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez that stood up and spoke his mind, he was a council minister, a bishop, of the United Church of Christ. He said, we have to demand to accept everybody. 72 leaders, church leaders, synagogue leaders, mosques leaders, and many other Buddhists, and many other faiths that came, to the press conference that we held here at the Trust, of the night of 9/11. It has been a beautiful journey, and these individuals, without their support, the African American, Reverend Bethel, the late Reverend Bethel, Imam Najib, Imam Mikhail Shabazz, my beloved sister, Maryam Dawan, and beloved sister Nadira Najib, Brother Wesley Johnson, many African Americans stood up, both Christians and Muslims. It is very important that we remember these individuals. Our dear Rabbi Joey Wolf, his public statement, his endorsement, his commitment, and then after that, Rabbi Kahana, Rabbi Kosak, and many other Jewish, leaders, and Brother Allen, from Euler, the late Brother Morris Taylor, that he was one of the early people that joined us from the LDS Church. So it is really the women and men that makes the difference. Jesus stood up, for whatever, he stood up. Moses stood up with whatever he stood up. Muhammad stood up, so do the late, sister, Mother Teresa, and many other leaders. So it is very important that we reflect that the challenge has been there, all the time, but how we can respond and challenge ourselves first. In the Quranic tradition, in the Islamic tradition, says that God doesn't change, the status quo of the people unless they change themselves. I had to change. I learned, what the UCC Church means, what to be affirmed and open. We disagreed in certain areas, but we have common values that unite us together to work. And we do respect, our differences. We do respect our differences with our Jewish sisters and brothers that happened, to believe in certain areas that we don't. But the common things between us, what brings us, is more than what divided us. Today, I love my brother Rabbi, Kosak, sometimes, the kids, call him Kojak, but Rabbi Kosak has been a wonderful symphony in our beautiful public square. My beloved Lynn Spouse, Lomas, the Reverend, she is a beautiful story, and so do Sister Molly and many others. So I'm very thankful for this journey. I'm very thankful for many, brothers like Paolo Catalani, the Japanese American community that stood up, publicly, the Asian, the African, and many others that stood up together in fighting bigotry and hate against Arabs and Muslims, after the 9/11. So the late Nuhat Tolan, he was a great instrumental man, a founding dean of the College of Urban Planning, the late Governor Atiyah, the late, Mayor, Katz, my beloved brother, Chief, Mark Croker. He was one of the early, chiefs that stood up and didn't allow, any kind of bigotry and hate against, the U.S. Attorney Billy Williams, Dwight Holton, and many others that came, from the law enforcement to be able to stood up and say, we are not going to accept, and so do, Governor Kitz Haber, and Governor Ted Kalinowski, and many others, that support this kind of inclusive, and embracing the immigrant and refugee community while we are moving forward towards healing and unifying. Today, we have many friends. May God bless them, and may God, be with them and be with us to overcome many challenges that we have today in homelessness, and this pandemic and many others that we face in our nation, in the world as well.
You're on mute, Pat Polo.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Wajdi. Thank you, Don Hector Lopez. I'd like to bring Sister Molly of the Holy Names into this conversation because, because if I'm ever going to feel better in a room, any room, name the room or name the sidewalk or the rowdy street I'm on, I want to make sure Sister Molly is nearby. Now, I know this is also true for Pastor Matthew Hennessy, but I know he has to stand in line behind Sister Molly to speak to God. So, Sister Molly, from your experience and from your life in your faith. Can you tell us about the everyday practice of beloved community? What has worked for you? And if this has worked for you, what will surely work for the rest of us? And you have to click on your microphone. You're still muted. All right then. Can we hear your voice one more time, Sister Molly? Oh dear, well maybe Rabbi David or Sister Anila can read lips, but I cannot. Yes, I think you're on.
Well, I think you're still on mute, Sister Molly. Sister Molly, you're still on mute, I believe. If you can click the microphone icon, and then you can unmute.
Oh, what we would pay to have a smart alecky teenager at your place. Right? We would fix this. And many other techie problems.
I think we can come back to Sister Molly, and we can figure that out, and look forward to hearing your words. Next, we would like to hear from our dear beloved sister, Asha Deliverance, owner, co-founder of Pacific Domes, but more importantly, the mother of someone who exemplified and lived the values of the beloved community. And on May 26th, 2017, it was right before the beginning of Ramadan that year, a man who was inspired by hate, a man who had let the rhetoric of hate and xenophobia and bigotry and prejudice allow him to see the world in a hateful way. And unfortunately, the people who practice this rhetoric and have this rhetoric in the airwaves, sometimes for political reasons, sometimes for other reasons, don't understand that there are grave consequences for it. And we saw that what happened on the Max attacks in 2017, when this man, out of hate, began insulting two young women, both of them black. One was a Muslim wearing a headscarf, yelling invectives at them, hurling hatred at them, when three men stood between him and his hate and the two young women and defended them. This man, motivated by hate and his anger, killed two of the men and stabbed another one. One of the men that he killed, Talishan, was a son of Asha Deliverance, a man who had grown up with the love and the beauty of the world that Sister Asha Deliverance has shown, and every interaction that we've ever had with her, or anyone has ever had with her, on these public forums or in person, that outpouring of love is evident. And this is what was taught to her son, one of the Portland heroes who gave his life, and the other men, Ricky Best, and the other one, Micah Fletcher, who was wounded but survived. The outpouring of love from the Muslim community and everyone else. Over 12,000 donors came together in 1 week in our Portland Heroes campaign, raising over $630,000 to honor the heroic acts of these men who said no to hate, who said no to violence, who said no to this bigotry and xenophobia that has no place in this world, has no reason for this world, makes no sense to anybody. And this young man, the three young men, and one of them, the son of Asha Deliverance, exemplified those heroic acts. And today we have honored again to have Sister Asha Deliverance to speak about the beloved community, and her words of wisdom. Sister Asha? I believe you're also on mute, Sister Asha.
Okay, how's that? I know how to push that button.
Perfect.
Okay, so I just wanted to remind you that that was the first day of Ramadan. And so the significance of, and I don't want to call it coincidence, was very important because, you know, even though this was a very tragic event, it was also a big statement. And it was inspired by Wajdi, actually, quite a bit, because unbeknownst to any of us, Talishan had gone to a lecture that Wajdi had given because he was studying comparative religions. And in particular was, his professor told us later, in particularly was interested in Islamophobia. He himself had a big heart about Islamophobia and didn't want to see that, he wanted to solve it. And so he went to the lecture of Wajdi Said, and he wrote a paper and said, of all the speakers in this panel, that Wajdi Said had inspired him the most, that he was truly a man of heart. And the teacher, after Talishan died, came forward and brought our family this paper. Well, it was also very interesting because after the tragedy on May 26th, the very next day, I believe, both Wajdi and Polo arrived at our home in Portland and brought comfort and camaraderie and love from the beloved community. And they you know, organized interfaith memorial for the next weekend. And so after the large memorial at Reed College, because Talishan was a Reed College student, with the governor and the mayor and all these people, the next evening we came to the Muslim Educational Trust and were greeted by all of you who are on this panel today. And we met the beloved community. And it was, for our family, it turned a tragedy into, you know, it was just met with love. And I believe that that's what we're all facing these days is, you know, the unfoldment of whatever the money war machine is creating in this world is leaving the rest of us responding with love. And Talishan's last words were, tell everyone on this train I love them. And that is a statement that I've had to really contemplate because Jeremy Christian, the man who killed him, was also on that train. And, you know, and learning more about Jeremy Christian as time progressed, I realized his mother was a saint. His siblings were incredibly intelligent, beautiful people. They were in that courtroom the whole time. There was a 2-week trial with Jeremy Christian. They were there the whole time. The mother, you know, sitting quietly, loving her son. And I realized how, you know, in my heart, I'm a mother, and I felt her. I felt her pain. I knew that she raised a beautiful boy and something happened, and that this society often damages the most pristine, beautiful souls who are raised by the most loving parents. And I think that when we say, tell everyone on the train I love them, we're talking about no racism, no bigotry. We're talking about forgiveness on a deep, deep level where we understand the true inherent nature of each individual being that of God, being likened to the image of God, being the pure, pristine consciousness that is the true nature of each of us, and nothing less. And we have to forgive any of these outer conditions. These are not true to the soul of humanity. And we have to stay focused on that which is true. And I think I'm going to stop there. And I want to thank the Muslim Educational Trust and the beloved community from the bottom of our hearts, my entire family, for supporting us through the most difficult experience and helping us to see the love and to choose love through it all. Thank you.
An incredibly beautiful response, as always, when you have graced us with your presence and your words and the values you taught, Talishan, and it's evident through you, Sister Asha, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight and sharing that with us. Next, we want to hear from our beloved senior rabbi at Congregation Neva Shalom, Rabbi David Kosak. And Rabbi David Kosak has always been, for these past many years, a voice of healing and unifying. And we would love to hear from him tonight about his interpretations of the beloved community and how we all can contribute to that. Rabbi?
Sister Molly is also unmuted.
I think in the notes, I would not presume to speak before Sister Molly, and it looks like she has managed to get unmuted. And of course, my congregants always are looking when I speak for the mute button, so I think it'd be great to hear from Sister.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. I think we will go to Sister Molly. Sister Molly, great to have you here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not very techy here, but I'll try. Thank you, Asha, for sharing what you just shared. I am so moved every time I hear you speak. So thank you again. Thank you, Brother Wajdi and Reverend Hector Lopez, for all you've done these past 20 years to help us form the beloved community, which is a work in progress. The first person I remember using the term beloved community was the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s, although he may have been speaking about it even before then. And one of the most recent times I heard the term was at Congressman John Lewis's funeral. One thing that stands out for me about the beloved community is that it is not something for the next life. It is not something that we will look forward to enjoying in heaven. It's for this life. We are to build it here and now. A community based on love and respect. A community without violence and hate. John Lewis said Dr. King's dream was to build a beloved community, a quote, society based on simple justice that values the dignity and the worth of every human being. Both John Lewis and Martin Luther King stressed nonviolent social change. And as you know, they faced arrests, beatings, and death in their quest for change. In the face of violence, they stressed nonviolence, perseverance, understanding, peaceful conflict resolution, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Dr. King said, quote, The end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is in this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. He described agape love as, quote, the love of God operating in the human heart. He said, agape does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people. It makes no distinction between a friend and enemy. It's directed toward both. Agape is love seeking to preserve and create community. And as we thank Brother Wajdi and Reverend Hector Lopez and their colleagues for all they've done to help build the beloved community, we look around us today and we see how poverty, racism, and divisions of all kinds are affecting our brothers and sisters. We know we still have a lot of work to do to build a beloved community. I know it's important for each of us to do what we can individually, but I also know there's power in numbers. I think it's important to find other like-minded people and join groups to affect change. Here's a personal example from a past 9/11 anniversary. 18 years ago, Wajdi and the Reverend Chuck Cooper, a Methodist minister, may he rest in peace, founded the Institute for Christian Muslim Understanding. I joined the group at its second meeting in July of 2003. And the group decided to have an inaugural event on September 11th, 2003, the second anniversary. Now, first of all, I was shocked by the short planning time. It took us the short time to get speakers, a location, publicity, etc., etc. I thought, how can we possibly do this? And secondly, they wanted to have a potluck dinner before the presentation. And I thought, how can we possibly have a potluck when we don't know who is coming or how many will be coming? Two of my good friends, Neil Ramjan and Asil Nasser-Dick, both beloved Muslim women, said, oh, don't worry. We have potlucks once a month. We know how to organize them. We have serving utensils and supplies, and it will all work out. I was torn between what if no one comes and what if thousands come? Anyway, to make a long story short, the Oregonian ran a story about the event, so that took care of the publicity. 400 people showed up, and they all fit nicely into Hoffman Hall at Portland State University. We encouraged people to sit with people they didn't know at round tables, and the potluck was a great success. Dr. Nohad Talan, may he rest in peace, and Dr. David McCreary gave a presentation entitled The Importance of Understanding Each Other. People were so appreciative. Some people said afterwards that they hadn't known any Muslims, and they were so happy to have the opportunity to meet some and talk with them while sharing a meal. I learned a lot that night. First of all, don't worry so much. Trust God and other people. And secondly, there are many, many people of goodwill searching for knowledge and understanding. They are all potential members of the beloved community. To build a beloved community, it's important to go out of our comfort zones, to meet brothers and sisters of different backgrounds, cultures, and religions. Dialogue is important. Breaking bread together facilitates conversations. We won't agree on everything, but we will be able to understand other points of view. There are many opportunities to take action. Welcoming refugees from Afghanistan comes immediately to mind. Granted, it's harder these days to meet people during the pandemic, but hopefully it won't last forever. Finally, I would just like to say again, thank you to Brother Wajdi and Reverend Hector Lopez, and to all of those who organized this event this evening and brought us all together. Thank you very much.
Okay, this means Rabbi Kosak has no excuse for not going next. And then after Rabbi Kosak, we'll ask Sister Anila and Pastor Matthew Hennessy to join us. Here's your chance to shine.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for sharing your insights and perspectives and your heart, and all the attendees as well for being here, because if we're talking about community, it's not enough to have a bunch of talking heads on our screen, right? We need that community to be out there. So I'm glad that we have representatives from the community as well. Polo, my only excuse for not speaking at this point is that it is the busiest time of year for a congregational rabbi. We're standing in the place between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the beginning of the year, and the Day of Atonement, which is a day of fasting and introspection, and this whole period is. But I guess I'll try to share a little bit of my thoughts about the beloved community as I understand it, why I think it's more not a destination, but a process, and some of the stuff we're doing, and what I think maybe we need as everyone to try to move a little bit closer to that. So we just celebrated Rosh Hashanah, and that means in the Jewish calendar that this is a year of Shemitah. It's a sabbatical year, which means that debts were forgiven. And built into the Torah, into the 5 books of Moses, is this notion of both a sabbatical and then every 50 years a jubilee, which resets land ownership. And there's something rather profound about that, because it recognizes in part that the mechanisms of equity and of reset are never. There will always be some people who end up with more, and that it's not a stable destination. And when I think, or when I hear the beloved community, to me it rings with a certain little bit with the notion of the messianic, and certainly in the Judeo-Christian traditions, we have a notion of the messianic. I don't know enough about the Islamic notions of Mahdi, but hopefully I'll get to learn about that a little bit more over time. But there's a way in which the messianic represents sort of the end of history. It represents a timeless period. It represents something maybe a little bit beyond human capacity. And if that's true, what it means is that we're always in process trying to get there, and it's not a destination. And I think that's important, because one of the things I see is that so many people who we would include in the ranks of the beloved community are carrying a lot of rage or despair or upset with them daily, which means maybe we're not quite as far as we think, or maybe the mechanisms that we're using aren't quite there. So I want to share, I guess, a little bit of how we've tried to, be participants at my congregation at Neve Shalom, which is the Hebrew for Oasis of Peace, which, boy, wouldn't we like our whole city to be an oasis of peace, and we're not there yet. And then move on to that, And so some of this, I think all of our faith communities are doing in their own way. So I do want to contextualize that. But this community, and certainly long before my arrival here, has been involved in hunger and social justice and a lot of different things. So we're a Red Cross emergency shelter, so that if things melt down, we're going to open our doors to the entire community in that area. We cook regularly for Outside Inn and have a long relationship with Neighborhood House. Cascadia Clusters is a Jewish organization that's been building small homes for our houseless neighbors, and we housed Cascadia Clusters for a time, and we took part in building our own donation of homes for those groups. For the last number of years, I've been running a program called Soup to the Kitchen, and congregants come to my house, and we make gallons and gallons and gallons of these huge pots of soup. We make hundreds and hundreds of sandwiches, and we go from tent to tent to feed our houseless neighbors, because a lot of people have been so traumatized, they're not even going to go to a soup kitchen. And we wanted to make sure that we were providing sort of radical hospitality to those people. Our community is a COVID response team that worked on behalf of not only the entire Jewish community, but also interfaced with some of the other communities, and particularly some of those who were a little bit more loath to get vaccinated. We've been running a series of Shabbats once a month called Unity Shabbats, which primarily were involved in bringing religious leaders of color into our community on our most sacred day on the Shabbat to share perspectives. And this certainly was motivated in the aftermath of the horrendous murder of George Floyd. So there are a lot of ways, and I'm sure everyone here could come up with their own stories for your own communities in which we try to embody and be the beloved community, and to be good neighbors, and to represent sort of the forces of love. And at the same time, I want to follow up a little bit on what Reverend Hector was saying, right? Reverend Hector said, let's do a little introspection, and this is the time of introspection, right, for the Jewish people. And said, let's not be too self-congratulatory, is how I heard you, Reverend, right? And so one of the questions that I think we need to ask from a place of integrity so that we can be better is, are the approaches that we're taking sufficient, right? Have we made the headway that we want to make? How do we know? How can we actually determine whether we're getting closer to where we want to be? I know that for the last 5 or 6 years, really after probably months here, I began to really work on dialogue and teaching dialogue skills so that people would have the capacity to meet one another across differences and to build friendships, because friendships are so profoundly have such a profound ability to change us, and sometimes even to moderate our views so that we can find that common public square, that common ground where we can see one another. And I have to tell you, I'm beginning to move out of that space, not because I don't believe in that work, but because I don't believe that it's gone far enough. And I've been doing interfaith work since my grandfather used to take me to my home community in New Rochelle, New York, 47 years ago now. And there are ways I feel like there's some progress here, and there are ways it feels like we're treading water. So I think all of our traditions and what faith has the ability to do that we should never downplay, right, is that first of all, it provides us with hope when it looks like nothing's changing. It can give us the inner resources to experience a sense of equanimity, because if the beloved community is always just beyond us, if there's a reset like that Jubilee year, like that sabbatical year, we need to still be able to go through life with that sense of equanimity. Faith at its best is a reminder that we are all connected to one another. And hopefully it guides us to having a sort of more open mindset rather than a fixed perspective. But when I think about how all of this plays out in the political realm, and how sometimes the best meaning of policies ends up producing the opposite results, I think we're all stuck in very familiar mindsets, very familiar perspectives, right? And it may be that this perspective is more on the left or this on the right, but it's very hard to hear new solutions or ideas. It feels to me, and it saddens me, that we keep repeating certain gestures. And I think what we most need, and that religion, and certainly the mystical traditions that exist in every religious tradition I'm aware of, we need a deep change of human consciousness. We need to break out of sort of the narrow confines, because even the solutions which come from a place of heart and desire and connection seem like the same things offered over and over. They may be changed a little bit. And so those of us who are in congregational settings, we care for everyone. We care for the weak, the widow, the poor, the indigent. And what that means is sometimes the deeper work of religion, which is changing the way we see the world, a more godly sort of eyes, which also opens our hearts, maybe that gets neglected some. So the beloved community is a place where we need to work for these basic goods for people, these aspects of justice, but also if we're going to get a little bit closer, a little bit further than we have, if we're going to overcome so much of the rage and anger from the best-hearted and well-meaning of people, then indeed we need to work, all of us, to track down those moments of awe and wonder and soul, and places where the ego can dissolve, so that we can feel at the inner core of our being that we are not only all connected, but that we really all are one. And I'd like to believe that if we can begin to move into a place where such consciousness becomes more available to greater people, that genuinely new solutions will arise that would allow us to make much better, further going progress than we've seen so far. So as we say, my tradition, Kenya Hiratson, may God help us to make that so, each in our own way. May all that we think we know be relinquished by the vast infinity of what we do not yet know. And may that help us to love one another better. And I want to thank everyone again for letting me be here and share in the very illustrious company and with people who've been in the Portland community and doing this work so much longer than I have. So thank you very much. Salam Aleichem.
Terima kasih banyak. I offer you our love, Rabbi David. And, I'm pretty sure you all are not standing between your devout's holy days. I'm sure you're running between your holy days. Next, please, if I could ask you, Sister Anila Afzali, because I think everyone can agree, we look up to your energy and your inspiration in the practice of building a beloved community. I think we look up to you as the explainer and the organizer of beloved community. Please let us know your thoughts and how we move forward together.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so very much, dear Brother Polo. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, hello, beloved brothers and sisters. Thank you to my fellow panelists and MET organizers for this event and this opportunity to come together in really a beautiful way. I'm feeling a lot right now, I will be honest, being together with my dear sister Asha after so long, hearing her powerful words and the words of my fellow panelists, and also being Afghan American with family in Kabul right now trying to evacuate. It is a difficult and devastating time. So I'm feeling a lot, but it is an honor to be here with all of you because this kind of gathering is life affirming and sustains me in the work that I do. On this 20-year anniversary, we definitely remember and honor the nearly 3,000 of our fellow Americans who were killed in the horrifying attack on our nation. We also honor the frontline workers and all the heroes who came together in the aftermath to rebuild and heal. But even as we remember the tragedy and horror of that attack on us, we also have to remember the many, many other victims, especially as the beloved community requires us to recognize our interconnectedness. We have to remember the victims of our retribution, the hundreds of thousands killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, the millions displaced, and the continuing harms, including to Afghans who we betrayed and abandoned to a brutal military regime. In addition, we have to remember the numerous other victims here in our own country, as Brother Wajdi and others recognized, including those who are Muslim or perceived as Muslim, our Sikh and Hindu siblings, who faced the deadly consequences of Islamophobia, xenophobia, and a faux sense of patriotism that was more about hate of others than love of country. Even though Muslims were part of those killed on 9/11 and part of those who saved lives on that day, we couldn't just grieve like other Americans. We faced collective blame and these kinds of revenge actions. And also the Patriot Act, surveillance, informants, Guantanamo, and the infringement of our civil rights, which actually ended up hurting all of us as Americans, not just Muslims, which is why I always say Islamophobia hurts all of us as Americans, not just me as a Muslim, and which is also why I appreciate Representatives Jayapal, Omar, Tlaib, and Chu issuing a resolution recognizing that yesterday. So then what does the beloved community mean to me? Honestly, for me, it means living out my faith values. Because my faith, Islam, just like the other great world religions, including those represented here, teaches us to do exactly that, to do our part in building that beloved community, the mercy and compassion, to stand firmly for justice, to have love for our fellow human beings, because all the children of Adam and Eve deserve dignity, respect, and are valued by God. And we worship the Creator by serving his creation. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that the best of us are those who bring the most benefit to society. Those are the instruction manuals for me. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also said that you will not enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love one another. And I myself have been the best version of myself when I have been closest to my faith teachings. I myself left my legal career in 2013 after a spiritual transformation that brought me back to my faith and really inspired me to pursue service and knowledge, because those are so important in Islam. Brother Waji mentioned the Quranic verse about changing ourselves before we can change the condition of our society or our people. And my faith is what gives me the strength to go on every day doing this work despite the obstacles, despite the challenges. It gives me the strength to speak even to those who may hate me, who show up at anti-Muslim hate rallies with signs in their hands. And yet my faith gives me the strength and ability to speak with them and have patience and love even for them. And to show that forgiveness and kindness exactly as Islam teaches. In order, as the Quran even recognizes, that when you do that, when you repel evil with good, you can actually turn an enemy into a devoted friend. And that's what the beloved community is about. Not sort of thinking that it's like, as Sister Molly recognized, it's not some utopia, some future world that isn't going to be in this world where, people change. It is making sure that even our enemies become our friends, recognize the interconnectedness of us. Or in Islam, as it's taught, the ummah, the we are all connected, that we are all one people, and we are like a body. When one part hurts, the other parts feel it. That's what we need, is that interconnectedness that Dr. King also spoke about. The great Muslim poet Rumi, who was actually born in Afghanistan, he wrote, "You and I have to live as if you and I never heard of a you and an I." That's how connected we are. That's how connected we have to understand that our actions, our behavior, even our thoughts are. And that's what we have to do. And as Cornel West teaches us, justice is what love looks like in public. Or Dr. King saying that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So to this day, we have to unite and make sure that we build the kind of movements that we need, that are multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-faith, multilingual, multi-generational, multi-everything, all of these barriers that are false barriers intended to divide us. We have to overcome that and build these movements to stand firmly for justice, and specifically in combating the three evils that Dr. King talked about that are still plaguing us to this day, that Brother Hatem also mentioned. Racism, militarism, and materialism. And it starts with us. And as I have actually seen people every day in the work that I do, I am blessed and fortunate to be on the front lines of seeing these many, many, many different manifestations of love and kindness and coming together to stand for justice and provide service to our fellow human beings. This has been so beautiful and powerful, and it inspires me every single day, despite the hate and bigotry that may exist, despite all the negativity we may hear about, despite the division and even the despair people may feel. I still get inspired, including specifically by people on this call and the actions of people like Talishan, the son of Asha. May he rest in power. We can and must build that beloved community and envision a different world that we can actually create here on earth. It's realistic, it's achievable, as Sister Molly recognized. And it's people like us coming together. We can't wait for Congress or any institution, our president or the courts or any institution to save us. It is up to us, you and I. When we come together, when we do take these kinds of actions, like holding these kinds of events and then going out and fulfilling it by serving our fellow human beings. And we have a great opportunity right now with the incoming Afghan refugees. When we do that, we are living out the beloved community. That is exactly what we need to be doing, is building these kinds of relationships. But you know what? We can't do that if we don't know each other. So we have to start by getting to know each other, because you cannot love someone or a group who you do not know, or worse, who you fear and have many misunderstandings about. So we have to educate ourselves as well. And then put that to good use by building these kinds of opportunities, bringing people together, and then taking action. Action on two fronts, both the advocacy and justice front, along with the service front. And specifically, I'm very actively involved in Washington and have been talking here in Oregon about different ways that people can step up to serve our incoming Afghan families. Because even though we've abandoned so many, we've betrayed so many, we broke our promises to so many, the least we can do is welcome with open arms the fortunate few who do make it over here and ensure that they integrate into our community and build the kind of beloved community with them that will reflect the best of our own values. And as bad as things are, I see this as an opportunity to rise to the challenge. Right now, there's bipartisan support for this, which is really wonderful. And we often don't see that kind of bipartisan support. We need to capitalize on that support and really take this as an opportunity to come together and build this kind of community and do the kind of work, the service work and the justice advocacy work that can also unite our hearts and bring us together, because that is what it's going to take. So please, I hope everybody recognizes the significant power and potential and privilege that we have of doing exactly that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sister Neela. You know, I'm in New York City, where I'd probably be slipping into bed about now, but you have so you have so inspired me. My hands and feet are sweating, and I'll try to find some way to calm down from this evening. And here's a gentleman who will not help help me on my way to Sleepy Land. And participants tonight, participants on Zoom, our YouTube participants, and other social media participants. If you haven't been to the house that Pastor J.W. Matthew Hennessy and his families have built on North Vancouver Avenue, please know that every time I go there, I seem to dissolve into this little boy who was suddenly, inexplicably separated from our parents when we were expelled from our homeland. And that same little boy who later tried to go to American schools, but simply could not find any way to egress that fast lane. This little boy, when I sit in the church that Pastor Hennessy and his families built, I weep like a baby. Now, I weep like that second grade boy. I weep like that junior high school boy when we came to America. And I think they're not tears of sorrow. Well, we'll let Pastor Hennessy explain exactly what kind of tears those are. But I love having this man around, and more to the point, I love his community. Pastor Hennessy.
Bless you, Polo. Good evening, my brothers and sisters. I come to you tonight in peace and in love, and grateful, humbled, and honored to be a part of this gathering. I want to thank Uncle Wajdi for bringing us together, he and Reverend Dr. Hector. I want to thank you, Polo, for you and Jawad and the wonderful work that you all are doing tonight. I want to thank each panelist because being the last one who will speak, but yet be ready to answer questions, I have been so inspired by what each of you have said that all I can say right now, if it were my heart speaking, is Amen, Amen, and Amen. I believe very strongly in what has been said already. Let me share with you tonight that this has been a great day of reflection. Not only is it 20 years ago since 9/11, but in my personal life, it was on the 6th and 7th of September that I was invited by Condi Rice to come to the White House for the state dinner for President Vicente Fox and his wife, and that I got time and opportunity to spend time in the White House, in the Oval, watching she and Alan Greenspan discuss music, and to be there at the dinner, a very intimate dinner of 136 people. This is again September 6, 2001. And also to have a beautiful concert that night, to come together as an amazing family of American people and people of all faiths, of all backgrounds, as we came together and then watched fireworks. It was almost surreal to be in this setting 20 years ago. And then only a matter of a few days later, we saw and witnessed the horror of 9/11, 2001. My friends, I too know where I was when I first heard the message that there had been a plane on a very clear day in New York City that plowed into World Trade Center, a place that I had been several times. And certainly, my friends, as we think about it, we recognize that it changed the world. And in a very unfortunate way, it changed the world. As a godson of Coretta Scott King and pastoring a church, the only church in Oregon that Dr. King spoke in during his life in November 1961, there is no question that I have often felt the mantle of the importance of helping to develop the beloved community here. And that's why I have been so grateful, really humbled and honored to work alongside each of you tonight, and to recognize that my initial understanding of the beloved community came from sitting in the living room with Coretta Scott King in the home that she and Dr. King purchased when they came back from Montgomery in 1960 after the Montgomery bus boycott. Or to remember the importance of us as a country recognizing that we literally do live in a fallen society, and that unfortunately too many paths of hatred have been passed down from generation to generation. And to recognize that if we want change to happen, that every one of us is responsible and every one of us can do our part. We've heard some wonderful statements made tonight about what people are doing, how people are feeling, and how everyone wants to see a better day. I postulate tonight that America and the world are hungry and thirsty for the faith community to work together. Because if we can work together, everyone can work together. We have had just as much division among us as anyone who is not of faith has had in their lives. I am grateful that here in the Portland area and in Oregon in general, that we are determined to work together. Tonight, my friends, as I look around this Zoom room, I say that everyone here is my brother or sister, and I pray that you can say the same thing. And you see, even if you don't say that I'm your brother, I've got news for you. You're still my sister. You're still my brother, whether you want me or not. And believe me, I believe that the roots of the beloved community come from each one of us making a determination that the words of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution have always been there, but the words themselves do not change society. It is you and I. It is passing it down to our children. It is stopping the hatred and hate speech that comes around us and letting people know what we stand for. Because when people find out what we stand for, they know that they cannot use hate speech around us. They know that we will check them. They know that we will cause them to be accountable. And so, my friends, I believe that it's important for us to at all times challenge ourselves every day to say, these are things I believe. I believe in love. I believe in mercy. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in grace. I believe in the importance of the immigrant is my brother or sister, the importance that the DACA students are my and young people are my brothers and sisters, and that I will fight for a pathway to citizenship for them, that we will fight to work together to make sure there's a pathway to citizenship for anyone who comes on these shores, because they are looking for a freedom that they cannot find elsewhere. That I recognize that Islamophobia is something that others may deal with, but they must understand you can't bring that stuff around us because we will not tolerate it. That it's important for us to remember that for every one of us, even if we have to plaster it on our refrigerator, plaster it on our mirrors in the morning and make it a part of our prayers, that if we really want change to happen, it can happen in each one of us. But we must be deliberative about it, and we must be intentional that we are not going to be retributive, but we're going to be restorative. That we are going to wage peace no matter what, that we are going to work hard to understand one another, that we're going to work hard to hear one another. In this day of great division, it is my hope that even my friends who seem to love and appreciate a certain former president, I so wish that they would literally hush all that noise and that he would do the same, because there has been something unleashed in our country that has been there for a long time, but it got unleashed. And we need to put this genie back in the jar. People need to understand that we are not going to live that way, that there is no way for prejudice and hatred to take root in our lives. And therefore, we must pledge to live, to work, to act, to think, and spread the word of restoration and peace, and the importance for us to acknowledge and learn how to love one another. My friends, I think of the words of Dr. King, who reminds us that no person is free until all people are free. I'm reminded of the words in my context, that when we think about what's going on in the world right now, and often we feel hopeless, I come to you to say that there's a wonderful hymn that says, "Come ye disconsolate, where'er ye languish, come to the mercy seat, fervently kneel. Here bring your wounded hearts, here tell your anguish. Earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal." Some may feel that this task is too big. I promise you tonight, this task is big. That is, this task is hard, but that's exactly why God has elected every one of us to be where we are, to do this hard task, but do it with the power and faith that it's going to work out all right, because we can't turn around and look at somebody else. This is our work. Someone asked a very prominent Harvard professor, and with this, I'm about to close. Are you optimistic that we can solve the racial problem? Are you optimistic that we can live together as brothers and sisters? Are you optimistic that we can eradicate hate? And his response was, no, I'm not optimistic. He said, but I'm a slave to hope. And my friend, tonight, I pray you are a slave to hope. I said it takes all of us. Dr. King said, and when people want to say, no, we can't, no, we can't. Yes, Dr. King said, if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, go on out and sweep streets like Michelangelo carved marble. Sweep streets like Raphael painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music and like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his or her job well. For if you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub on the side of the rill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Just be the best of whatever you are. And I pledge tonight, let's go away from here, determined to be the best and make this country even better. Thank you tonight.
Thank you, Pastor Hennessy, and thank you for all the words that we've had tonight from everyone. They've been inspiring. I know the audience has been chatting about how you have inspired them and how people want to know about volunteer opportunities at various organizations that are represented here in the panel. And we can put it in the chat for contact information if people want to get involved and how they can add to this beloved community. I realize we're really close to the time right now, and I wanted to ask, circle back to Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez and Dr. Wajdi Saeed about some of the things that Pastor Hennessy alluded to at the end. We have words of hope. We reflect on these 20 years and all the work that's done, but there's still work to be done going further. What were some of the biggest challenges in forming the beloved community, and do those challenges still exist? Are there still people who would be against a beloved community, who want to obstruct it? And if so, how can we overcome those challenges? Brother Wajdi, Reverend Lopez?
I will ask kindly my dear beloved brother, Reverend Hector Lopez. You're mute, beloved brother.
My dear brother Wajdi. I will start with one of the major problems in my community. And I really appreciate, I forgot who said, was it you, Matt, that within our own denominational or faith groups, we have more tribes within that than there are in the whole world. Amen. But one of the things that I noticed about our gatherings for the last 20 years is, and we had some nice size gatherings for many of those, and I have to give great honor and credit to YSD and MET, because they worked so hard to bring people together after 9/11. They were so intentional. And I was proud that quite a few of our faith communities responded to that challenge. But throughout the years, I've noticed that well, I'm not even going to say we, because I'm retired. I have nothing to do with this anymore. But you who are leaders, no, I have to say we, because I can't accuse you of anything that I won't accuse myself.
No, for sure.
We have not been able to sustain the energy within our own organizations. We have not been able to draw them to the demonstrations, to the what's the saying we use, YC? to the public square. We have not been able to get the hundreds and thousands of people that are represented within all of our denominational and religious groups to come together as a unified group of committed and faith people to stand up for righteousness and for racial justice and for you name the issue. We have not been able to do that. That's one of the greatest challenges I have seen for myself as a religious leader, and probably I think amongst this window and other people who are around, that may be an issue too.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez, my beloved brother. You are a wonderful story that we have appreciated, read, and still enjoy the moments with you. And my dear beloved brother, Matt Tennessee, you are a beloved brother. You know, you are a wonderful man, and so do Sister Molly and Anila and Aisha and Polo and Jawad and many other brothers and sisters, you know, Lynn Lopez, and many that really have shaped our mind, and in particularly my mind, you know. And I think it's very important for us to understand the challenges, you know, that are in front of us yesterday or today, or it's going to be happening tomorrow, that we are part of that challenge. You know, my mother always told me, Wajdi, you know, I'm the youngest of 65 brothers and sisters and cousins, you know, first cousins. I'm the youngest of all these wonderful sisters and brothers, you know, and sometimes when you are the young, you get, you know, dominated by the elder, you know. And she told me, Wajdi, never point a finger towards anybody. Always look at the three fingers that are pointing towards you. Yes, we have people that disagreed about having the Mormon church with us. Yes, we had people that disagreed having, you know, the Scientologist or the LGBT community or many others. But unless we rise to the challenge, you know, as looking at the beloved community, that we are one race and one humanity, irrespective of our, you know, man-made, and I say man because we men are always divisive, dominating, you know. Sisters are mostly healers, you know, and they are more unifiers. I experienced that in my family, 9 sisters, blood sisters, you know, of 18 siblings, you know. And I think it's very important that, you know, this bust, you know, these isms or these divisions can be overcome. I mean, 100 years ago, we had one world, no boundaries, no passport, no visas. The Silk Road, you know, all the way from China to Yemen, brought coffee from Yemen, frankincense that mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures, and the gospel of Jesus, you know, burning the temples with this beautiful frankincense and the coffee, and the Silk Road carpets from Afghanistan, from what we call today Iran and Tajikistan, the spices from India and tea. We can reclaim this Silk Road, you know, cultural diplomacy. I think we have to start within ourselves, elect the individuals that we think they are going to be healers and unifiers, irrespective of their party affiliations. Malcolm X is one of the best examples how he healed himself. He went to the Hajj and he saw the Muslims of Turkey and Bosnian and Kosovo's European background. He saw them blue-eyed, you know, white color of skin, or, you know, and he changed. He said the only way for America to heal itself is by understanding Islam. Islam is a beautiful religion. Islam has been, you know, acknowledged, you know, the Jewishness of our sisters and brothers that happen to speak Arabic or North African or in Andalusia in Spain, where spoke Spanish. A great historian by David Westerstein, who said if it wasn't Islam, Judaism wouldn't have survived Christian Europe. Today, our beloved sisters and Jewish and, you know, Jewish and American Muslim need to understand each other to heal and unify. We have a challenge in front of us, you know, the Palestine-Israeli conflict. We have a challenge among ourselves that how can we address, justice and peace and embrace one another. We have a program that we started almost 25 years ago. The late Nuhat Tulan and the Rabbi Joey Wolf came together, and myself and Frank Afranji and many others. We said we are going to refuse to be enemies. We are not enemies of each other. American Jewish, American Muslim, Jewish Americans, Jewish of the world and Muslim of the world and American Muslims, we are not enemies of each other. We have to come together to our reason that we are all children of God. We are all children of Adam and Eve. We are all children of Abraham. We need to embrace one another. We need to focus. How can we embrace one another? Today, I will stand in front of my brother, Rabbi David Kosak, if somebody attack him. I'll give my life for him. I'll give my life to Aisha. I'll give my life to Sister Molly and brother Hector Lopez and Pastor Hennessy and many others. I'll give my life to Jan Alfer. A lot of people have sacrificed to create this beloved community in Portland, Oregon. And it is possible for us to claim that love, the way that Talishan gave his life in the TriMet. Because in 2015, I met him at Reed College. He was a student. Me and Imam Najib, an African-American Muslim, spoke to his class. We talked about justice and peace, how Muhammad, peace be upon him, embraced this with the agnostic people, with the Jewish people of Medina, and the new Muslims of Medina. All of them create what's called the Medinan Society, the Medinan Society that governed by the Medinan document. A great Muslim historian and law professor, Aziz al-Hibri, she wrote about the founding fathers and mothers of this nation. And she said, US Constitution versus Medinan Constitution of Medina, 1400 years ago, a history of borrowing or possibility of shared history. We don't work from vacuum. We build in success upon success upon success. We are not going to heal 100% because we are humans. And humans in Arabic is insan. Insan means somebody that forgets. We forget our values. We forget our responsibilities. We forget many things, but we need these voices of balance, voices of ethics and values. And the only way for us to survive as society until we claim as faith leaders the love of Abraham, the love of Jesus, the love of Moses, the love of Muhammad, and many other great men and women that have taught us in history. It is possible, and it has been a wonderful journey. In my 34 years, 19 years old Yemeni American. At that time, I was an international student. If it wasn't that, Reverend Dr. Phil Harder, campus minister at Portland State, if it wasn't Sister Molly that I met 30 years ago, if it wasn't Cho Dozono, if it wasn't Reverend Hector Lopez, many people embraced me, and they were very patient with me. And the late Governor Atiyah, he was a Republican. Yes, he was a Republican. He was a great Republican. He was a wonderful one. He was a proud Arab American, Syrian American. Deborah Kafuri, mom, Gretchen Kafuri, and many others. They were patient. I was young. I was very ultra spicy, but they been in a very loving, caring way. They embraced me. And then the touchdown came from my beloved brother, Reverend Dr. Hector Lopez, and his beloved wife, Lynn Lopez, that really, and the Ramjans, Gail and Ayub, and Sister Nadira and Maryam, and Imam Najib, Imam Shabazz, and brother, Matt Hennessy and Paulo Catalani. It is very important that we are patient today with our youth, and we have to embrace them while we are singing the peace train. The peace train has to move always forward. And when the ride in that peace train, we capture as many as we can, to be in the ride with us so we can achieve what we call the beloved community until God inherit this earth in a loving, caring, responsible way. I am really thankful to each one of you, and allow me, if there are no questions, to end this with a beautiful song by Cat Stevens, Peace Train.
Well, we may just have to have Rabbi Kosak take out his guitar and lead us.
God on the peace train.
Can everybody hear the song or not yet?
We can't hear the audio, Brother Warsley.
Okay, we'll do it slowly. I'm not a tech savvy, but I'll be in a minute. Can you hear it now?
No, there's still no audio.
Can you help me, Jawad, if you want to do it? Jawad, can you help me if you can do it?
Let me try here.
Sometimes we have to hear through the silence the peace that the train brings us.
That's true, Rabbi. Okay, I got it, I think. I got it, I think.
Great privilege to be here. It's a long time since I've been doing this kind of work.
Can you hear it, everybody?
In the meantime,
yes.
In the meantime, I have been working, doing other things in education and relief, and that is why I'm exceptionally happy today that this fantastic achievement, the Nobel Peace Prize, is being given to the man who is doing so much to alleviate poverty, Mr. Muhammad Yunus. And poverty, actually, the erosion or the eradication of poverty definitely is the way to peace. I'd like to sing a song that has something to do with that. It's linked slightly. And you probably recognize this one. Now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Yes, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be someday it's going to come. 'Cause out on the edge of darkness there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again. 'Cause I've been smiling lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. The peace train sounding louder, glide on the peace train. Come on, peace train. Yes, peace train, holy roller, everyone jump up on the peace train. Come on, peace train. Now get your bags together. Go bring your good friends too, 'cause it's getting nearer. It soon will be with you. Just come and join the living. It's not so far from you, and it's getting nearer. Soon it will all be true. Peace train sounding louder. Ride on the peace train. Come on, peace train, peace train. Now I've been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? 'Cause out on the edge of darkness there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again. Peace train sounding louder, ride on the peace train. Come on, peace train. It's peace train, holy roll. Everyone jump upon the peace train. Come on, come on, come on. Let's come on, peace train. As it's the peace train. Come on, peace train, peace train. Peace train.
It's a beautiful way to end the evening. Thank
We
you
would
all
love,
for
Jawad, if
joining.
you don't mind, if you can ask Rabbi to end with the prayers. And Happy New Year to you, Rabbi, and to our beloved Jewish sisters and brothers.
Rabbi Kosak?
And God, we have such an innate ability to feel and understand and connect with those who look most like us. Help us to have and extend that innate capacity to love to those who don't look like us or think like us. Help us to see what you see, that we are all your children, that we are all here for a greater purpose, which is to celebrate in the creation, to share love and growth, to become the best versions of ourselves we can, so that we can most fulfill the gift you've given us, the gift of life, which goes by so quickly and which should not be wasted on hate, but which should inspire us to use every waking breath to praise, to sing, to hold one another's hands, and to build towards that beloved community for which you put us. Amen.
Amen. Polo and Jawad, if you want to end.
Please, Pak Polo.
It has been a very, very difficult 20 years, but I think we won't do this kind of thing again. As individuals, as families, as communities. This is a time of reckoning because our precious little planet can't take anymore. Our mother, who's now grandmother and a great-grandmother, told us when we were little, when we first came to America, that she'd had it up to here. She can't take it anymore. She was angry at us. She brought that home one day from work, her first American job at a middle school, at a junior high cafeteria. But I think now our entire planet, whale mothers, polar bear mothers, marbled murrelet mothers, are all have had it up to here. Afghanistan and Iraq were a part of that extractive attitude that our very successful economies have had toward the rest of our achy little earth. And this needs to end. Extracting people, extracting labor, extracting minerals, tuna, woodlands. This needs to be over now. And I think we all know it. Like our mother said, I've had it up to here, up to here. And we call it Pribhumi Mani's sweet Mother Earth has had it up to here. So let's take care of her. Let's take care of ourselves for the next 20 years. We can make this vow. We can make this as beautiful as the last 20 years were sorrowful. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. My beloved brother Hector, thank you very much for your leadership. And Sister Molly and many others. May Allah bless you all. Thank you very much. Alaikum.